And this time, I handed the pile to Hermes, and we turned it into 47 tasks. Read these articles. Nobody is touching the keyboard, and the ledger updates itself on the next tick. Once the pile became a ledger, I went and closed all 76 tabs, all of them, and the laptop finally cooled down. If you work with AI, odds are you've heard of Hermes Agent. Not the Hermes handbag, but it is trying to earn the same kind of permanent place in your daily rotation. Now, you may already use ChatGPT or Claude Code or OpenClaw. Each of those can give you that fantastic agent feeling, where you hand it real work, step away, and come back to progress. So why add Hermes? Is the setup another tedious process? What can it do that the other agents you already use cannot? To answer that, I give Hermes the work that trips me up most often, and by the end, it had earned a permanent seat in my crew. This video shows you the 3 runs that changed my mind, how it worked, and what you can do to make the most of it. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Jenny. I believe anyone can thrive with AI, not by mastering every tool, but by building real things with them. I write a weekly newsletter called Build to Launch, where we apply AI to practical building and finish something real every single week. Okay, back to Hermes. Here is the gap every tool I use has. When you are working in one long session, everything piles up in there, and it's great. The whole chat history, all the details you cared about, all the preferences you've stated, it's all captured right there. Then the session gets compacted. Claude does that automatically when the conversation gets long, and you lose a lot of the granularity. And it gets worse. If you forget where that chat session is and start a new one, odds are it won't know where you are, what you want, or the preferences you've already built up. Maybe Claude keeps some slight memory of things, but that's about it. And that's not a bug in Claude Code. Most AI tools treat state as a liability. Long conversations slow down, so you clear them. Heavy context costs tokens, so you trim it. The architecture punishes you for teaching it things. Hermes, built by News Research, takes the opposite bet. State is the product. Everything it learns about you and your work is supposed to compound instead of evaporate. That one bet explains everything else in this review, including the failures. The bet runs on 3 mechanisms. First, memory with a forced diet. Hermes keeps a file about you kept at about 1,400 characters, and a memory file kept at about 2,000. The caps are the feature. When something new comes in and the file is full, it has to consolidate. It has to decide what matters. That's judgment, not storage. Second, skills, it writes itself. Every 15 turns or so, a background process replays what just happened and asks, was that a workflow worth keeping? If yes, it writes the procedure down as a skill file. Next time a similar job shows up, it loads the procedure instead of re-reasoning from scratch. Third, recall you can actually query. Every conversation is indexed in a local searchable database. I asked about a tool I'd scouted in a past session, and it pulled up the exact earlier work before I re-explained anything. And before you assume this is one of those tools that is a weekend to set up, it's not. Hermes ships a desktop app now. On my Mac, I downloaded it, dragged it into applications, and opened it. That was the install. It was honestly much shorter than the setup I went through for my OpenClaw series. And when it opened, it came with 27 built-in tool sets, 18 of them already enabled. Browser automation, code execution, messaging, cron jobs. The gateway was running. The model picker was sitting right there in the status bar. It was ready to work before I had finished my coffee. So here's the map. Claude, Codex, Cursor, they are all session tools. They are brilliant while you are sitting there, but they are blank when you come back. Hermes and OpenClaw, on the other hand, they are persistent agents. They memorize, they schedule, they message, they have state that survives. And inside that bucket, there is one huge difference. OpenClaw's skills come from a marketplace written by other people. And Hermes writes his own from your work. One is an assistant with an instruction manual. The other one writes its own manual after finishing your task and reads it next time. That is the promise. And here's what happened when I give it real work. So this is one real job I give it. I make Grok X API calls every day to scrape for new conversations around AI. They were costing me about $1 a day just for light scraping. And since I already pay for Grok, so I connected Grok through Oath and asked Hermes to map Mark Lowe's entire product operation. One prompt, and then I went and did something else. And this is what was waiting for me when I came back. And honestly, the first thing that got me was how organized it was. It didn't just dump a pile of links on me. It mapped somewhere between 20 and 30 products, because that's roughly how many Mark Lowe has shipped over the years. And then it did the thing I would have had to do it myself. It figured out which 5 actually get his attention right now. Everything else is long tail. And it didn't stop at what the founder says about himself, which is honestly where most research stops. It went looking for actual customers. So there is this person who bought one of the products back in 2023 and now talks about quitting the 9-to-5 path. And Hermes didn't just quote that. It kept the story attached to the exact claim it supports with the link. So I can go check it myself. Okay, and now the part that matters for your wallet, because this is the part I really didn't expect. All of this ran through native Grok X search on the Grok subscription I already pay for anyway. So my personal X API and the thing that was costing me about $1 per day just sat there on the unused tools list the entire time. How good is that? The full research pass burnt 0 API credits. And that's when this 1+1 thing clicked for me. I used to think of Grok as just another chat subscription I probably was not getting full value from, but connecting this way, that one subscription became the search layer and the reasoning layer at the same time. So same money, doing 2 jobs. And it did 5 of these passes in a week. Different targets, same shape, and each one a file I can open 6 months from now. The second use case, I have this bad habit of keeping gazillion Chrome tabs open and wanting to explore each one when I have time. But you'll never have free time for that. So it was just sitting there. The laptop was running hot enough that I could hear the fan, and closing them felt like losing work I still wanted to read or test or run. So the pile just stayed open all the time. And this time I handed the pile to Hermes and we turned it into 47 tasks. Read this article, scout that method, test that skill, tear down the repo, and one rolling job keeps going. Then it just kept going without me. Watch the file. Nobody is touching the keyboard and the ledger updates itself on the next tick. Across fresh sessions, it executed code and graded the output, trialed an Instagram skill against a sample folder I had parked forever, and surveyed 159 repos through the GitHub API. It banked 15 of the 47 before I caught it. So it's incomplete, but it's still moving. Of course, getting the schedule to fire on its own did take some work, but before that, honestly, I was the heartbeat, but one fix and it ran by itself. And this is my favorite part of the whole thing. Once the pile became a ledger, I went and closed all 76 tabs, all of them. and the laptop finally cooled down, and I could actually hear the fan stop. The work didn't disappear. That was always my fear with closing tabs. It's all queued, and it's moving on its own, and I am the one who decides what happens with each result. The third thing is the one that makes the other two trustworthy. I can audit everything it did, line by line. Every task has exactly one state, done, partially blocked, with a note, and every one row links to its proof. I open task 3 and there is the file with the named commenters it collected. I don't have to take the agent's word for anything. And this time there's one thing I hadn't seen in any other tools that does the same thing. So I pointed it at vidIQ, the YouTube analytics tool that they have in MCP, and Hermes found that the server configured but disabled. It enabled it, hit a 401, switched to the oath, opened the browser flow, and after I authorized it, verified 46 tools, it checked, it failed, it fixed, and it confirmed. Then its own skill told me to run a reload command that does not exist. And instead of shrugging, it went to the official command reference and patched its own skill file while I watched. The corrected instruction held for the rest of the session. An agent that admits its own documentation is stale is an agent I can work with. So one caution though, that same loop can overwrite skills you wrote by hand, turn on write approval, and every change waits for your own sign-off. So is it good? Yes, with your eyes open. Hermes is strongest when the work needs to outlive one chat. It runs on models you already pay for, it resumes a job from files, and it corrects its own procedures when the work exposes them. It has a permanent seat in my crew now, and I still supervise everything it produces. 2 things you need to know first. 1. It can mark the wrong result done. I had a comment scraping task where it landed on the wrong surface, found 2 throwaway comments, and nearly called the task complete. My brief said the comments were rich, and 2 trivial comments should have triggered a contradiction, but it didn't. The screenshot made it worse. A full screen capture photographed my unrelated codex window instead of the target page. So the fix is structural. Done requires the success condition written in the task file, not a confident final answer. 2. Everything in one workplace shares one context. Memory, sessions, skills, cron jobs, run 2 unrelated projects in one profile and they will bleed into each other, and the chat history wouldn't save you. Scheduled runs all share the same truncated title with no visible state. So if you want to get the most out of it, here are the 3 rules actually run with it. 1 workspace, 1 job. The ledger file is the status signal, not the chat, and let it grind, but audit every few batches. The agent does the grinding, I keep the verdict and every release action. That's the 3 runs that changed my mind, and the rules I use to get the most out of it. If you want a written version of it, I have the full write-up of this video in my newsletter linked below. Check it out. I hope it helps you see where Hermes fits your own work. If you want more videos like this, hit like and subscribe. Before you go, tell me in the comments which real job would you hand Hermes first. See you next time.